Could one of y'all pass the gosh darn rock? Hey yo, I'm trying, I ain't lying, and hosting this will be Brian. He posting like Kobe Bryant, he flying to see the pilot. Hit the hezzy, we got Jesse, opinions get kinda messy. A fan of Avalanche, from football to racing jet skis. This is Pass the Rock, don't stop the shot clock. Pass the slap shot, come on, now let's talk. Pass the rock.
Woo, I do not know how I'm going to follow that intro, but welcome to Pass the Rock. Shout out to Spencer for that wonderful intro video.
I was jamming.
This is LT Jesse. I'm joined by Zach today. Brian is on sabbatical, so we're going to be taking over. Zach, how you doing?
I am doing quite well today. It's a beautiful day down here outside of Philly. How about up there with you, Jesse?
Oh, it's a beautiful day up north as well in the Great White North. Pretty sunny, actually. A bit of a heat wave we're going through right now. But can't complain. Not going to be complaining during those super snowy winters, but we got some NBA finals to talk about first and foremost. We got a long agenda today. NBA finals, a little bit of MLB, and some Stanley Cup playoffs to talk it off, as well as just some other general sports news. So let's get into it by debriefing Game 1. This is our first episode of Pass the Rock since the NBA finals started. Game 1 was the Al Horford show, his finals MVP odds. Shot up to plus 1,500 after the game. And by the way, don't miss out on our Twitter spaces every night after each game of the NBA Finals. We're hosting a Twitter space to talk about it, live, raw reactions from the game. And we were talking a lot about Al Horford a few nights ago.
Yeah, if you guys want our raw reactions right away, you don't have to wait for our episode. We're doing every single NBA Finals game. And in the future, we're going to be doing a lot more crazy live events. It's going to be really fun. But, I mean, this first game, it's just thinking back to it, I mean, the Celtics stormed back, from the third quarter. They stormed back with a 40-16 finish and to end the fourth quarter. I thought it was absolutely crazy because it was a game where you didn't really want to count anyone out, but the fourth quarter, that was the Celtics' time, and they just went off.
Yeah, it was crazy the parallel between Game 1 and 2, that in Game 1 we saw the signature third quarter Warriors. They were up by 18 at one point. I believe it was 14 or 15 heading into the fourth quarter. And then out of nowhere, the Celtics start, I think 8 for 8 or 9 for 9. And I mean, Derek White wasn't missing anything.
It was over from there.
And they just completely locked in. And it was crazy that in Game 2, they were kind of in the same position going into the fourth quarter, except they had that quite a bit of momentum. Jordan Poole hitting 2 back-to-back deep threes, one a little bit deeper than the other.
A little bit. We're talking about a 9-foot difference there. With
about a step in from half. Yeah, buzzer beater.
That third quarter was absolutely insane by the Warriors. Not only could they just pretty much not miss, they were playing great defense, stopping Boston, locking all windows and doors. There was nothing that Boston could do to stop them. Curry and Poole both really shined. I mean, Curry had almost 30 points, and Jordan Poole, he didn't have all the points in the world, but when he was making the buckets, they were at the perfect times, and you won't see that in any box score.
Yeah, and mind you, the entire fourth quarter was practically garbage time. I mean,
it was nothing.
The Celtics had one of the strangest lineups I've ever seen in the game, and no Warrior has scored more than 20 points yet in games 1 and 2. Wiggins had 20 in game 1. That's the highest of anybody not named Steph Curry. But I mean, Jordan Poole his confidence was A1. After he hit that half-court shot, Steph Curry gave him this look dude, are you kidding me right now? What are you going through right now?
And I mean, there were a bunch of Celtics. I'm pretty sure 3 of the Celtics starters from last night were held to 2 points each, including former Finals MVP favorite of the show on Twitter Spaces, Al Horford. If you guys do want to hear our Finals MVP so far predictions, go check out our Game 2 Twitter Space recording. It's on Twitter. Lost Tribe Sports on Twitter. We recorded that last night. Go listen to it for our takes on who could be the favorites to win Finals MVP from both teams. But now we look forward to Game 3, and I mean, the Celtics have not lost back-to-back games in the playoffs yet. So, I mean, that could be really something to watch.
Yeah, especially because they just snapped the Warriors streak of having not lost at home this season. Now the Warriors have a chance to break one of Boston's own, but I mean, when we're talking about what the keys to the game are here, the Warriors have really played the same game in back-to-back games, scored around 108 and then 107 points, been pretty consistent, shooting 40+% from deep in both games. It's just their defense really turned it up, holding Boston to only 88 points in this game. And, those shots, like Draymond said after game one, Al Horford and Derek White aren't going to shoot a combined 8 of 11 from deep or whatever it was in game one, or even more than that, actually. But, those shots, they're going to fall some games and some games they won't. But the Warriors have just been extremely consistent this entire playoffs, really, except for that one game that they lost by 60 to Memphis.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they've been really
when it comes to keys to the game, I mean, the Warriors defense stands out to me. That's going to be a big factor about it. But the other biggest factor is how Jason Tatum plays, I think. I mean, we saw in game one, he was very unselfish with the ball because he was struggling, to score at all. But, it didn't really matter there. And then game two, he starts, I'm going to take the ball. I'm going to really, go after it. But he's not using his teammates at all. So it's really, that kind of question. What can Jason Tatum do? Does he quite simply have that dog in him? I'm wondering what he's going to do for game three. Is he going to prove, that he's, up to the superstar levels of his idols that he keeps talking about and keep texting, and keep all that stuff that's going on online with Jason Tatum idolizing Jordan and Kobe? Can he make their names proud? We'll see in these next couple of games. But so far, it's been a really mixed bag, and I don't know if he has that dog in him.
great use of the prop there. But I've seen some.
This is a living animal.
Whoa.
This is my dog. This is Scout. I think this is Scout's debut on the podcast.
Welcome to the show. And I'll just say I've seen some pretty funny memes online of the Jason Tatum text of I got this today, and then the replies Warrior in 5. Or
I saw that one.
Yeah,
I saw that one. Oh man,
they're pretty funny. But for the Celtics, it's interesting. We kind of saw this in the Mavs series. The games where Luka didn't score that many points was the games that the Mavs were winning throughout the playoffs. And then the games where he had 30 or 40 was the ones that they were losing. So maybe the key to the game is that Jason Tatum isn't their leading scorer. I mean, Al Horford he was 1 for 4 from the field after hitting 6 threes in game one. He was looked a little scared to shoot. They were closing out on him much more, really making him a lot farther back. He was kind of a couple feet behind the 3-point line, and he doesn't have that type of range on him. So it's going to be interesting to see who on the Celtics takes that leap. If it's Jaylen Brown comes out with another 30-40, but it's going to be tough against that Warriors defense. They're so good at rotating. Kevon Looney is one of the best switching centers. On
who would have thought about that? Who would have thought that Kevon Looney would be this good in these playoffs?
It makes perfect sense because
he's actually good. It's crazy.
He's great. He was perfect from the field with a solid 12 points, 7 boards last game. But in high school he used to draw comparisons from Kevin Durant himself, and apparently Jordan Poole was saying he was a legend. I believe in wherever they're from, not Wisconsin or somewhere, wherever they went, but. Looney was a legend, and since he was a forward throughout a lot of high school and then just really grew into a center, kind of like Anthony Davis. That's why he's so good on the perimeter.
Yeah, well, I mean, just shows to show the Warriors, they're always thinking ahead. They're not as involved with all the centers, but I mean, there is NBA news outside of the NBA Finals, and I mean, as some of you may know, Quinn Snyder, the longtime head coach of the Utah Jazz, retired, and apparently is leaving Donovan Mitchell unsettled, unnerved, and wondering what it means for the franchise's future. That's per Adrian Wojnarowski. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions surrounding Utah, and I think the biggest question is, who's going to be traded first, Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert? Because it seems like the Utah Jazz might be entering that rebuild stage where they might want to flip one of them for young assets, if not both of them. So, Jesse, who do you think is going to be leaving first, and where do you think that they might go?
I think that it's going to be Mitchell to go first. I mean, given the report you just said that he's unsettled, unnerved, and wondering what it means for the future, he might be wondering what that means for his future. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of teams eager to grab the human highlight that is Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he's phenomenal on offense, the offensive side of the ball. He's one of the best to do it in the NBA. He's shown that he can perform at a high level in the playoffs. I mean, dropping 50, remember in the bubble, there was some great basketball there, but it's going to be easy for any team then maybe the Knicks, or maybe shout out to David, who's saying his Heat could put together a little package for Donovan Mitchell. I could easily see him fitting in somewhere else. Gobert is going to be harder to move, but he also would, I think, draw a bigger return given the importance of defense. I think people would want to easily just trade for another offensive superstar, especially when you got a franchise that's like kind of dead in the water. Like, who knows? Maybe the Pistons will somehow put together some type of package, and maybe we'll see like a Cade, Donovan Mitchell type package. Maybe they send Jeremy Grant and blah, blah, blah.
That would be crazy if the Pistons were the ones to make that kind of move for a star like that. I'd be very surprised with that. I cannot envision either of them in a Pistons uniform, but I agree with you. I think that Donovan Mitchell will probably be the one who gets moved first for similar reasons as you described Rudy Gobert. I think that, with Rudy Gobert, you could easily argue that he's a top 3 center in the NBA. His value is honestly through the roof, especially on the defensive end of the ball. But Donovan Mitchell, I wouldn't say he's even top 5 as a guard in this league. I think that he'll be a little bit easier to move, and they'll still get whoever trades for him will get they'll get pretty good return from any suitor for Donovan Mitchell. So I think just because he's not as quote unquote valuable, he might actually be able to be easier moved. And I think Miami could really be that suitor. I mean, David was telling us trade packages. He's going off about, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero for Donovan Mitchell. And I think it might take a little more to get that done. But Dwayne Wade is a partial owner of the Utah Jazz. Might be some internal meddling. You never know.
I like that.
A little bit of a headcanon theory there.
I like that aluminum hat type theory
the
right there.
tinfoil hat going on here. But I think you never know especially in Utah, you never know what's going on over there. So, I mean, I think we're going to be seeing Donovan Mitchell be moved, possibly even this offseason.
Yeah, I could see, the Heat, they have like 7 guards on that team. I could easily see them,
they do have like 7 guards.
Take away a little depth. Maybe they ship a couple of them. Like maybe they ship Gabe Vincent and not Lowry, and, Hero and whoever, Max Strus, they got a lot of options over there. Maybe they downsize, condense a couple of those players, send them off. Victor Oladipo, they got him too. So it's a little crowded over there. Speaking of centers being moved, per The Athletic, we've heard that DeAndre Ayton of the Suns has likely played his last game in a Suns uniform. After that really disappointing loss to the Mavs, I've heard that things are a little shaky in Phoenix right now, and that him and Monty Williams had some disagreements. He was expecting to get a max contract. Does not look like Phoenix is going to offer him one. So who do you think is going to pursue DeAndre Ayton this offseason?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm actually a big fan of the Knicks actually going after DeAndre Ayton. I mean, they don't have really a franchise guy down low. I mean, if you want to get a pairing for Julius Randle, that'd be a really good 1-2 punch, with DeAndre Ayton and Julius Randle both being decent scorers. I mean, I think Ayton to the Big Apple, I think it could really be something. And I think that New York has a bunch of assets that they could use to, maybe do like a sign and trade for that max contract with DeAndre Ayton. I mean, New York, the New York Knicks, they always want star power. They haven't really had it since Carmelo Anthony. I don't think DeAndre Ayton is the biggest star in the NBA, but, if we're going to have a guy make a big name for himself going from the West to the East, from a team that's not as popular to the Big Apple, pretty much what Carmelo did. And also the character issues are kind of similar between Carmelo and DeAndre Ayton. That might be a bit of a stretch, but DeAndre Ayton to New York, I don't think is.
I like that take. I really do. I think that the Atlanta Hawks could be another suitor for DeAndre Ayton. I don't think that they're going to want to send him anywhere in the West. I think that it's definitely going to be the East if he ends up getting traded. And that's why looking at the Knicks and the Hawks and even maybe the Charlotte Hornets, the Charlotte Hornets, they've had kind of an iffy big situation. They had Plumlee, and then they got Montrezl Harrell halfway through the year. They've also had a mix of centers who are like 6'7", like PJ Washington, and Miles Bridges sometimes even plays the 5. So I would be interested to see if they want to pair that with LaMelo, get some great, big man LaMelo chemistry going. I think that could be a great fit for him, but I really do think the Hawks could be a good move too. The only thing is they would have to move Capella in that deal, and given his injury history, not sure if the Suns would want to go in on that, especially having dealt with injuries with Ayton already. And Clint Capella has missed a lot of games in these past few seasons. So we'll see where he ends up going. I'm sure he'll be a hot commodity this offseason, though.
Honestly, with Clint Capella, you know what I think about that? If the Suns did trade DeAndre Ayton for a package like centered around Clint Capella, I think the Suns could win that deal because Capella, I feel like he could actually make a bigger impact for this Phoenix team, not being as big of a personality, to disrupt Phoenix's group. I think Clint Capella has always been underrated, in my opinion. I think he would really complement that Phoenix team, and I'd be really scared of that team going into next year if they have a team. Say they also get like a forward back with Clint Capella, like who knows, maybe even a Kongwu or something. I'd be really scared for that Phoenix team for a few more years to come. That'd be a really scary group, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Hawks are deep at forward as well. I don't think that they'd want to move DeAndre Hunter, given that he was kind of breaking out a little bit towards the end of the season.
Mhm.
But they've got guys like Gallo as well, or Kevin Herter, or, like you said,
There's a lot of
Okongwu,
options,
or
and a lot of them could be really good for a team that gets them, especially Phoenix, as we've been mentioning.
yeah, I really like that topic. Let's move to another topic in the NBA. Why are there 3 days between each finals game? It's like we got a game
Oh, man.
Thursday and then Sunday and then Wednesday. Like we're gonna be graduated from university by the time game 7 comes around. And that's not even a joke. Like I literally am graduating
Isn't.
before
There's
game 7.
kid being let out. Like, I mean, we have a lot of viewers that are in their high school days. They'll be out of school by the time a game 6 or 7 comes around. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you could argue the whole load management, low risk of injury thing, but I mean, if the NBA wants to get viewers, I'm not super interested tuning in every, 2 days break in between games. It's a little hard to keep up with them. Like, yeah, you get 2 days to talk, but if it was every other day, I'd be a lot more invested. Like the earlier playoff series. If you have one off day, then the next day you play, oh man, I'd be way more invested in this series. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to watch my Phillies like every night at this point.
Yeah, I think the 3 days it's too long at this point. I mean, I get that they want the players to be as healthy as they can to produce the highest level of basketball so that the finals are, it's high quality stuff and people aren't limping around. And that way, if somebody gets injured, that they got maybe like 2 full days to rest. But it's also like, come on, they're not playing football. Like it's not, they don't need Monday to take off completely. Tuesday's the walkthrough. Wednesday, this is the light practice. Like this is basketball. I mean, I know that they've been playing 20 plus more games than a lot of these other teams here, but it is basketball at a certain point. I mean, I think that they're just trying to stretch as much money out of this thing as they can because the more days you have, the more media you have, the more times you have for Guillermo to go walk around practice and interview everybody. But I think it's acceptable for between travel games, like between games 2 and 3 or 4 and 5. Sure, take the extra day, but there does not need to be 3 days between games 1 and 2 and games 3 and 4.
No, there does not. I totally agree. But speaking on the idea of scheduling and everything, would and or should the NBA ever shorten the regular season? I don't think they would, and I honestly don't think they should at the same time. Only because first of all, they wouldn't because of the money and revenue it brings in just around the league, and you have certain teams that are struggling a bit more, but some of those high-end, high-market teams, you're making a lot of money off of every single game. They are not going to be shortening the season. But should they shorten the season? I also disagree because it's just a lot of great basketball that we're going to be seeing throughout the regular season. Every team gets to play every team every year, which is not something that every league. I think they're probably the only league in major North American sports. Excuse me if hockey does this, but they're the only league that actually has every team compete against every single other team in their league. Because MLB, there are teams that you won't see for years and years. Like it just happens. And the NFL, you only see certain teams once every 4 years. Meanwhile, the NBA, you get to see every team play every team in a really well-constructed 82-game format. If they can keep that same thing going, then sure, you can shorten it by a few games, maybe like 72. But if you can't, I don't want it. I don't want it shortened. I like seeing every team be able to play at least 2 games against every single team.
I agree with you. I think it's great that they do that. I'm not actually sure either what the NHL does, but I always find it odd that in the NFL that some teams won't play each other for up to 4 years. And the teams that we knew 4 years ago, like look at the difference between the Cavs 4 years ago and now. Like it's a completely different team. And a lot of these teams, they have their highs and they have their lows. So I agree that I like that they play each other all the time. I don't think that they ever would, just because 10 less games means 10 less games worth of money. It's just money at the end of the day. It's 10 less games that they get to broadcast, that they get to sell tickets at, that they get to sell everything at. If anything, like you said, 72 seems like the shortest it would ever go. I could only ever see them shortening it if they added more playoff games, because playoff games make up for the additional revenue.
I don't like that. I don't like
and
that.
Then at
I don't
that
like
point,
that anymore.
If we're gonna have like 20 teams making the playoffs or something,
I'm already not huge on the play-in tournament. It's just kind of funky to me, and like sometimes it's good. This year, like you look at the standings, it wasn't as good. Sorry, Brian, because I know you're Pelicans. You snuck in, and they did well and everything, but. I mean, I'm already not huge on that, but if you're adding even more playoff games, I do not want a 9-game series in my playoffs. I think that would be absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, I was seeing tons of jokes online, like Mavs in 9.
Warriors in 8, baby.
Yeah.
Sixers in 8. Yeah. But another story that's been coming out, over the past month or so is that the Adam Silver was saying that the NBA is going to consider making all NBA teams positionless. I think they should absolutely move forward with this. I am totally not biased whatsoever in this regard.
He says in the Philly merch.
Yeah, as I am wearing a Phillies jersey, right on my chest. But I think they totally should do it. I mean, it is ridiculous to have the second place MVP runner-up on the second All-NBA team. Like, he was also eligible as a forward, and they still put Giannis over him, who was third in MVP voting, who should have been the small forward. And then I think it was Jason Tatum was the first team small forward. He should have been on the second team this year. I think Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic should all have been on the NBA first team. There shouldn't have been a battle between Giannis and Embiid or Jokic and Embiid to have that right. All three of them, they were the 3 best players in the NBA. I don't care how big they are. They are the 3 best players in the NBA right now. 100%. They should have all been on the same All-NBA team. Everyone knows this. And I'm still partially in shock that they are just bringing this up now. Like, this is now just an idea when Embiid was arguably snubbed last year as well, when he was also second place in MVP voting. 2 years in a row, same thing. It's about time the NBA decides to change something. Let's get some justice for Joel Embiid.
Justice for Joel. I'm with it.
Justice for Joel, baby.
I think everything you just said is absolutely true. It's interesting because people used to not want to make all NBA teams or anything like that positionless, because that would eradicate centers from these lists. Because when the NBA was ruled by the LeBron, Durant, Carmelo, Kawhi, it was all small forwards. And so I think a lot of people would think, okay, it's going to be 2 guards and then the 3 best small forwards. And like same with, there's also Paul George and DeMar DeRozan, arguably a small forward. Like a lot of these top players were small forwards. Now it's funny because we want it to be positionless so more centers can get on the list. Yeah. But outside of those two, I mean, I don't think Rudy Gobert or someone DeAndre Ayton would ever get a spot on first team All NBA. I was shocked that Karl Towns actually made All NBA
I
over
was surprised
Gobert
too, especially over Bam Adebayo, who had a
really
season. I like Cat. I don't know if he's top 4. Like, I mean, I feel like he could round out the top 5 with Bam, but I don't know if he's above Bam. It's a very close debate there. We could have another day, but the NBA, the All NBA teams, they need to be fixed. The right players need to be in the right teams, and I think it's about damn time.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another topic. This could be a long debate, but we could also try and keep it concise. Given that right now we got the NBA Finals, we got the Stanley Cup Conference Finals going on in the NHL, we got some pretty good midseason MLB going on, a little bit of NFL offseason. A lot of people say that June, around the month of June, is some of the best time of the year for sports, possibly the best month or a couple week stretch. Other people might say it's around Wild Card Weekend over in December or around that time of year. So let's just say between those two extremes, the summertime of NBA Finals and hockey playoffs, or the wintertime more of the NFL playoffs and all of that's going on. Plus you got the Christmas Day games and the Thanksgiving games and those. if you had to pick summer versus winter sports time, what's the best?
I'm gonna throw this argument out the window. I have my own answer for this. The answer is the last 2 weeks of September and the first 2 weeks of October. That period right there. We are talking postseason MLB right off the bat. Postseason MLB is always crazy. Regular season NFL, and then early season. Just getting into the early season of the NBA, they usually start around mid-October. So you end that month stretch with the beginning of the NBA coming back into fold. So maybe I could go into like late October as well. So maybe just like go with October as a whole. So like October, I think is the best month for sports. You have, again, postseason MLB, regular season NFL, and NBA starts up right near the end of October. October is the best sports month, hands down.
All right, I'm gonna disagree and say it's got to be the stretch right in the new year after December, January. You got Christmas Day games, even though we're Jewish. You got Christmas Day games. We don't have any obligations on Christmas unless you observe it, which is totally fine. But you got Chinese food and NBA basketball on Christmas. Then you also
Food
got
should not be a factor in your sports ranking.
all right.
Food should not be
You
a
also
factor.
got end of the regular season NFL / wild card weekend around that time. Week 16, 17, now 18 heating up. Some of those games are meaningless. Some of them have everything on the line. Those games are always really intense. And of course, wild card weekend, what could be better, right? Then you also got the NHL and the MLB both, or actually the MLB is over by then, but you got the NHL kind of starting to get into swing at that point as well. NBA is nearing the All-Star break. Again, that Christmas Day basketball, nothing like it. I got to say December, January is the best time for sports.
My only argument against you is that you talked about those late season NFL games, especially the week 17 and week 18 games, sometimes can be, and I will quote you, meaningless. Nothing about October sports is meaningless whatsoever. Every regular season game counts for the NFL and NBA, and postseason MLB is very, very tense and very, very exciting.
That's true, unless you're a Phillies fan.
All right. Swear to God, I might ruin my room right now. I might just ruin it. I might just flip the bed right now.
I mean, I have no dare understand on the Jays missed the playoffs with 91 wins last year, so move on from that.
I mean, so did the Mariners. I think the Mariners missed with 91 as well. So,
you know what? Let's talk about some MLB because we've got a crazy story involving your Philadelphia Phillies.
Yes, we do. Well, first of all, the Angels have now lost 11 straight games, which is already crazy enough. Since Tommy Pham said that Mike Trout was the worst commissioner in fantasy sports, Trout has gone 0 for 21, and the Angels are 0 for 6. And also, since Mike Trout had that video with his son pitching, saying that he wasn't getting enough hits recently, the Angels are 0 and 8. We don't really have the batting stats for that, but he's been 0 and 8 since then. But more importantly is that the Phillies are finally back, baby. The season started as soon as we fired Joe Girardi and promoted Rob Thompson as our new manager. We are undefeated in June, undefeated with Rob Thompson, and yesterday's game was very exciting. I think it really showed a lot about both teams actually yesterday, because the Angels did have a chance to win that game even after the Bryce Harper home run. They just didn't capitalize on how bad our pitching is. And then Bryson Stott, of all people, decides to put it away with a 3-run walk-off homer, only the second in his career. Phillies baseball is finally fun again. I'm so excited to actually watch baseball. I haven't been this excited since the season actually started, and then Joe Girardi was a mess. Our lineups are finally consistent again. We're being run like an actual organization. I have not been this excited for Phillies baseball since the beginning of the season. So happy right now.
Boy, you sweep a spiraling team and everyone loses their minds.
Yes, exactly. We are clinging on to any thread of hope for the rest of the season. But in all seriousness, I think that Rob Thompson has actually done a really good job in his first-time managerial role for the Phillies. Even though the Angels are struggling, you are talking about two MVP, two MVP level players on that lineup back to back, Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout right there in the thick of things. I mean, you're beating them fairly consistently in a 3-game sweep, and they played in all 3 games too. It's not like one of them was like resting or anything. That's pretty impressive for a first series as a manager. I mean, made the right decisions on the mound for the most part. Like, no major criticisms there. So, I mean, he did a very, very solid job for his first series.
Hey, shout out to the Phillies. And I'll say right now, I'm in the same boat. I'm pretty happy with how things are going. The Blue Jays just won 8 straight. That did just get snapped by the Twins recently in an 8-6 loss. Then they fired back 12-3. The Jays won, and I think the Twins took game 3 of that series. But we're right there with the Twins. The Jays right there in the division as well. They're 31-22 right now, so off to a great start. I went to see them last week. Here's the thing. I went to the game last Tuesday. It was Looney Dog night. For anybody who is not from Canada, a loonie is a $1 coin. The hot dogs were $1, except you couldn't pay cash. It was a no cash Looney Dog night. Who does that? Who does a promo based on $1 hot dogs? Also with tax, it was more like $1.13. But you have to pay with a debit card or a credit card. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's the ballpark.
It's for the kids. It's for the kids. It's for the kids.
It's ridiculous.
A similar situation happened down in Philadelphia where we did have dollar dog nights. I didn't hear any controversies about the actual payment, but they were only scheduled to have 2 or 3 of them this year. And then a fan actually called a state senator to try to get it that we'd have another dog night, another dollar dog night. And needless to say, the Phillies have listened. Apparently, we will be getting another one later in the season. That's how successful it was. So, very interesting. Always good to hear a story about a crazy Philly fan, I think.
Yeah, and by the way, they said that there was a limit of $4 dogs per person.
That's ridiculous.
No one was counting.
That's ridiculous.
No one was counting. You could have just gone to a different concession.
You don't limit the dollar dogs.
I think it was in a one order you could possibly have, but no one was counting. You could just go to the next gate over. Anyway, in other Blue Jays news, George Springer just moved to 4th all time in leadoff home runs with 50. Number 3 spot's only 53. So high likelihood that he could actually get to number 3. He has 7 this season alone.
Wow.
I think
congratulations to George Springer.
The most he has hit in a season is 12. So, I mean, he's on track less than halfway through the season. We still got over 100 games to go. But George Springer, I mean, what an acquisition for the Jays. Just thinking of how good he's actually been in the years that we've had him. No better way to start a game than just a leadoff bomb. Like
nothing better. That's how the Phillies started off the series against the Angels. Kyle Schwarber, first pitch you saw, leadoff home run. But yeah,
especially when it's first pitch leadoff.
First pitch leadoff home runs for your team, especially like get through the top of the first inning. All right, how's the team gonna do this time? First pitch and it's just launched deep and gone. It's crazy. Best feeling you can have.
Yeah, especially actually when it's away as well, and it's the first pitch of the entire game.
Well, that's even better. But like at home, just hearing the crowd roar right away, it's the best.
Yeah, especially if you get a nice 3 up, 3 down first inning or a quick, and then boom. See ya. Anyway, George Springer, shout out to him. He's been phenomenal for the Jays this season, holding it down when Vladdy was in a little bit of a slump, but Vladdy's been saying see ya to a couple balls this week too. So, and also shout out to Alejandro Kirk, our DH, who had at the start of last week had 1 home run and is now at over 5, I think. So he's and he's like 5'6" or something.
Yeah.
Looks like 250 pounds. Like just
oh my god,
pure power.
I mean, kind of reminds me of another shout out. I mean, I already mentioned Bryson Stott, but I'm pretty sure going into the series or right before he hit his first career home run, to now have 2, and his second ever career home run is a walk-off. So pretty impressive stuff from both our teams with the hitting going on.
Yeah. By the way, this guy Kirk, 5'8", 245. So he's about a foot shorter than LeBron and maybe only 10 pounds lighter.
That is insane. I don't know what Bryson Stott's height is, but I know he's only 190 pounds, and he's getting his groove together.
Hey, power hitters, baby. All right, last
power hitters.
Last couple topics before we say shalom to everybody for the rest of the day. We got some Stanley Cup playoffs. We got the conference finals right now. The Lightning in their last game with the Rangers. The Rangers had their number this season, and they started off the series 2-0. It was 2-2 with about 40 seconds left in the third quarter. Lightning put it away, stave off the 3-0, keep it alive 2-1. We got game 4 tomorrow. I'm going to be live tweeting the game. So make sure you check out the Last Tribe Athletics or the Last Tribe Sports Twitter. But what do you think about the Lightning series so far? You think the Rangers can maybe push off the back-to-back defending champs?
I mean, I'm not a huge hockey guy. I'll be the first to admit that. But I have been seeing a lot of New York Rangers content on my TikTok page. I won't lie. I mean, I think it's going to be a really good series for anyone who tunes in. I want to say the Lightning can go and get that, get back and get that three-peat and everything, but it's just, I mean, it's a really hard uphill battle. I mean, the Rangers, they really know how to play the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it looks like I think I might be picking the Rangers to edge out the Lightning and go to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think they might have their number. It's going to be like a 6-game series, maybe even 7, but I think the Rangers, at the rate they're playing, they might have the edge to make it all the way to the finals.
It's pretty funny that just the state of how poor basketball and football is in New York, but hockey and baseball are alive and well.
Oh, yeah. Yankees, Mets, Rangers, baby.
Mm-hmm. And then last but not least, we have the Avalanche and the Oilers. Again, not the most exciting series. The Avs are up 3-0, despite McDavid and Draisaitl being the top 2 point scorers in the NHL playoffs. Game 1 of that series was 8-6.
Crazy.
By the way, which
crazy.
is just nuts. But that's been an entertaining series so far. Hopefully, Connor McDavid and co can keep it alive. I mean, McDavid's obviously still the best player on the planet, but Avs are just a really, really darn good team.
Yeah, I mean, I think this series is probably a wrap. I'd be pretty surprised if they push it to 5. I think it's a wrap right there.
Yeah, and hey, reverse sweeps have happened in the NHL before. Never in the NBA, but in the NHL they have. So
thank God the Sixers didn't get reverse swept this year. I thought it was going to happen against your Raptors for a minute. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, well, there's always next year.
Always next year.
Well, Zach, it's been a pleasure. Thanks to everybody who will be listening to this week's episode of Pass the Rock. And again, you can catch us on the Twitter Spaces after every game of the NBA Finals. So follow Lost Tribe Sports on Twitter if you haven't already. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing at this point. But we will
Why
see
are you here? Go.
Yeah.
Pause this podcast. Go to our Twitter page and hit the follow button. We do great stuff over there. Come on.
It takes like 2 seconds. Anyway, see you all later. See you all next week. We might have some fresh faces on the podcast again. We're going to be switching it up a little bit this summer. But thanks for listening.